Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and that is people across grand spectrums of time and the multiverse. My name is Alexander Gordon Johansson. Yes, I am back recording on a tablet because, yeah, the laptop and the desktop are still not fixed yet, and uh, I've been, well, it was my birthday yesterday. I have bought myself. I've bought myself moist and delicious salted caramel cake from Waitrose, because I had to go there pick up some food for Ronikin, because little cuddly cat eats a lot of food. um. So yes, it was my birthday yesterday, and I have been listening to the Review of the Future podcast, and also, I made a video some time ago, sort of saying, PSA, work out the logistics before you ask someone out on a date. And basically, I'm still in touch with that guy. Ronnikin, what are you doing? Ronnie? Okay, I shouldn't get distracted by the cat. I'm being even less professional than I usually am. So I'm still in touch with this guy who dumped me on the first date because he suddenly realised, oh shit, this isn't gonna work practically in terms of regularity. And I think he's a really sweet guy, and I genuinely like him and care about him a great deal. And he is autistic. I mean, I'm on the autistic spectrum. I've got Asperger's syndrome, but this is a guy who lives on toast and milk. And you can't see, by the way, but Ronikin has just jumped onto the bed. Yeah, I kind of got to keep the sort of camera, the tablet perched. Might see if I can. No, I can't. But yeah, this guy is really quite, sort of severely autistic. He can't go out, because if he goes out on his own, he'll lock up, and then he doesn't know what's going to happen. If he's in a stressful situation, he could act out violently. He could break windows. I mean, I've talked to this guy over Skype and stuff, and it's like you make a mild criticism, and you can just see his brain shut down, as it's just like he ends up almost like, okay, this is going to be a dated reference, even for people, today in 2016. But there were these things called CDs. Okay, they were called compact discs, and they were discs that played music that would be in a CD player, a compact disc player that would play music. This was before iTunes and Apple and stuff being all the rage and stuff, and sort of streaming music and stealing it, basically. So you had compact disc players, and you had compact discs, and the way they would work is that sort of a laser would sort of go through, following this sort of, burned in impression in the disc, right? And the disc would spin really fast, and the laser would play the music by reading it off the compact disc, right? But occasionally it would skip, and skipping is, it was this thing, this concept, this thing that would happen whereby, for whatever reason, the mechanism would break or whatever, or essentially maybe the disc was scratched, or there was a smudge, there was a bit of dirt or something, and so the CD player would try to play the sound, it couldn't, and so it'd rewind and try to play it again. couldn't rewind, try and play it again. And what you'd get is this effect of, like, I mean, it's been done in, Supernatural and stuff to sort of, as a way to show time stopping, is that essentially, I mean, actually, I think a fantastic example of this kind of thing, it's actually with a gramophone, but in the Doctor Who TV movie, when it's at the very beginning with Sylvester McCoy's Doctor in the TARDIS, as he's taking the Master's ashes to be, buried or whatever on Gallifrey. And obviously the Master stages his breakout attempt despite being ashes, and sort of the TARDIS goes wrong, and he's listening to some kind of opera, and then suddenly you have this repeating skip as it goes time, 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 time. Basically, that whole digression into an explanation of what CD players were, sorry, and what. And the scene in the Doctor Who TV movie was just to explain the fact that essentially that's what this autistic guy that I know and care about a great deal will do when you ask him a great deal. When you ask him, when you say some minor criticism, well, it's almost like that. It's almost a stutter, except it's just you can just see his brain break as he just goes, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. And watching it happen is heartbreaking, especially like, over Skype, because I'm a very empathetic person, if I see someone in trouble and in emotional distress, I want to go over and I want to hug them and say, it's okay, it's going to be alright. But his brain just can't cope, he can't handle it. He, really quite badly autistic. And another problem that, that this guy has is essentially the way we treat autism in society is that we either say, oh, well, this is a terrible condition and these people are suffering horrendously, but we also don't understand them, so we're going to try and make sure that we erase them from the gene pool. We're going to insult them and degrade them and they shouldn't exist, it's or we go the other direction and we go yes, autistic people, they have problems, so we're going to tolerate them and we're going to, do what we can to accommodate them. And the thing is, like, autistic people have to get around in society, And I believe that we can, because, I have got mild autism, mild Asperger's syndrome, which is in itself mild autism. And basically for me, I learned social skills, right? Like it is possible to consciously learn facial expressions, audible, audio cues, the ways that we express emotion through our voice. It's possible to learn to consciously learn the ways in which people stand, and how that affects, and what that means about their emotion. It's possible to learn consciously the expectations of a given surrounding, of a given context. It's possible to learn all these things and thus know what is and is not the appropriate thing to say. I mean, I still get it wrong a lot of the time, but I can function. This guy can't. He, sorry about that. Yeah. This is why you don't record on tablets. But this guy, he has he basically can't deal with it. Okay, I'm someone who like, there's the expression, don't cry over spilt milk, For me, it's like, well, milk is always going to be spilt but how do we make it less likely to be spilt in the future? And what do we do now that the milk has been spilt? You deal with the problem at hand, and then you prevent it happening again. The problem that, my friend has is that he can't deal with the problem when it happens. He physiologically can't, right? His approach to dealing with a sociological problem arising from his autism is freak out and hope to fuck that he's with someone who can deal with the situation. That's why he has to basically go everywhere with a carer or someone that he can trust to effectively function as a carer, because if he ends up in a situation where he doesn't know what to do, where his brain effectively blue screens and he starts, skipping, then that's a bad thing. So essentially he gears his entire life to, I want to avoid all risk of that happening. Except at the same time, this is a guy, he's a human, right? And humans are social animals, right? I mean, this is something that I feel is that, like, I really, really like people. I genuinely do, I am at my happiest when I'm in a convention hall, because I'm in a place filled with people who think in a way that I can communicate with them. I'm in a place with people that I can just communicate with, and there are hundreds of people, thousands of people. And that's where I feel at my happiest, because humans are social animals. We want to be with people who understand us, and this is the case for my friend. And he has certain, physiological needs that unfortunately require, distance and, or at least being able to easily commute. That, alas, prevents us from... Interestingly, like, this... I genuinely heard this guy say the other day, what does passionate mean? Like that's almost like what a computer says in a stereotypical piece of pulp sci-fi, But Captain, what does it mean to love? It's that kind of ridiculous. What? But this guy, genuinely just doesn't know this stuff, because the concepts are not there, because essentially his issues are so bad that he could never, because he can't function in society, he was never involved in society, so he never had a chance to learn from society and adapt to society. And that's kind of, that for me is, I think, part of the problem. That there's almost an element to the way that how we treat autistic people makes their symptoms worse, right? Autism, all it is fundamentally is lacking the instinctual social skills, right? It is thinking differently. But you can consciously learn what people's facial expressions mean, what people's tones of voice mean, what people's, stances mean, what the kind of cultural context of being in a given situation mean. Like, you can compute this stuff, right? And that's sort of why I want to talk about this stuff today. And yes, I have no way to edit, so yeah, sorry. So you end up in this. So one while can't edit. What I want to discuss is how almost we can find a way to give autistic people a social prosthesis. I'm calling this, the autistic bootstrap. Okay. Because the idea is that, we are giving tools to enable people, or autistic people, to make themselves better. In that, okay, right, if you give someone who is missing a leg or is paralyzed an exoskeleton or a replacement limb, right, they aren't going to regrow their legs. They aren't going to overcome their paralysis. You know, they're not going to repair their biological ability to bypass the paralysis. You know, that doesn't happen. Instead, you know, you're essentially saying, well, you can't do this, so we're going to invent technology that will enable you to be able to do it, right? Whereas human brains are very changeable, right? It's called like plasticity. You know, this ability to be easily changed and updated. You know, like, you know, I mean, CGP Grey has done videos on, you know, the fact that essentially you know, you can, you know, separate the parts connecting the left and right brain, and people continue to function. You know, like I mean, there are studies you can look at of people who have had half their brains removed, and they can relearn, right? There have been people who have been in deep comas and have been able to relearn, right? The brain is very plastic. The brain can retrain and relearn, right? So I feel like if we can create a kind of social prosthesis to enable autistic people to engage in society, then their brains will adapt to society, right? It might take time, and it's gonna be difficult, because, you know, the whole way the prosthesis will need to work is that you're essentially removing the society so that they can function within it, right? But I think that if we can give autistic people a kind of social prosthesis so that they can start engaging in society, then we are giving their brains a chance to learn and adapt to society, and so maybe someday they won't need the prosthesis anymore. So what might a social prosthesis be? Well, we are seeing advances in this sort of field today, in the sense of, you know, Microsoft HoloLens, the Oculus Rift, the HTC Vive, right? In the sense that, you know, all this stuff is augmented reality, virtual reality stuff, right? And how is that useful? Well, essentially, I think we've already got enough technology that we could create a kind of social prosthesis today, right? I mean, obviously, I'm going to use my friend here as a sort of the test case, because basically I want it for him, right? You know, I want it for him because I care about him, because I want him to be able to engage and have a happy, healthy, fulfilling life. And at the moment, he's basically trapped in his room, and he can't even go to the doctor to get help with his depression, because it would mean having his carer, and, you know, like, he's very anxious about lots of things. And it's like, you know, like, we have ways that we can help people who are anxious and depressed and all this stuff, but we can't help them if they can't leave the house to go seek the help. Okay, so a social prosthesis would be, okay, a helmet. A helmet, you know, say, connected up to a backpack with a battery pack, and maybe, say, a solar panel, you know, plug-in jacks, and, you know, a central processor unit. And the idea is that this could, that essentially you have front-facing cameras, and you have, you know, sort of monitors on the person, you know, who is having the social prosthesis. And essentially, you can use algorithms that is being used on things like Siri and Alexa and Google Now to do like voice recognition of, well first, so that, you know, the person with the social, who needs the social prosthesis can interact with it, but also so that it can essentially listen to what is coming in, to what is being told to the person with the social prosthesis, and it can, you know, maybe provide a translation, and it can use that to work out what the social context is. You know, you certainly can, you know, I mean, what's going to be difficult is the software. Okay, like the hardware, I think we kind of already have, but the idea is that, you know, you'd have some kind of augmented reality setup, you know, and what it would do is it would be watching, it would have cameras looking at, tracking, you know, the faces of the people around, and it would be tracking the facial expressions and mapping them to different data signifiers, right? I mean, you know, like, this could be done in a very crude fashion of, like, you know, there is a database for animators about what different facial expressions look like and what they mean. So you could, in a very crude way, rig up some kind of facial recognition software to a database of that and say, well, this person is having an expression that most closely matches with this, so therefore they're probably feeling like this, which means this. I'm going to then feed that into the algorithm, right? And then, you know, you can use an analysis of, you know, of the tone of their speech, so you can tell if they're being sarcastic or whatever. You can parse the data, the words that they are saying, and look at that. You can, you know, look up, I mean, again, for animators, there are things, you know, saying, you know, what figure expression means, so you can look that up, and it can, you know, sort of, the cameras can be looking at figure expression and matching it up to databases of figure expression and saying, okay, well, this body language means this, so therefore this means this, and this, and this. And then you pull all of that data into some kind of calculating engine, into the computer, which would then output some, you know, some advice, right? Or it would output a desired scenario. Okay. And the thing is that, right, this isn't going to be better than people. This isn't, you know, like, this is not going to be a substitute for having an actual carer, right? But it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be good enough that someone with autism can have more of an understanding than someone with than they would without this social prosthesis. Okay, because even if it only gets it right, say 50% of the time, as long as you err on the side of caution, then essentially you can end up with something that is far better than what they would have to deal with on their own. And so you're essentially you're scanning in all this, you know, the faces and the body language and the tone, and you're parsing the what's being said to work out the nuances and to translate it into a language that the autistic person can understand, which is going to be a lot easier, because the thing is that autistic people, or, you know, it's good. I mean, I say autistic people. Autism is a spectrum, and, you know, I mean, people say, you know, gender and sexuality is a spectrum, right? Not in the same way that autism is, in that, like, genuinely, the abilities and what people can and can't do changes so radically at different points along the spectrum. Okay, so as I say, I'm basing this around, you know, my friend, but presumably if this can work for my friend, then you can adapt the technology to help work for people at least, you know, a few degrees further up and a few degrees further down the spectrum. Okay. But, you know, my friend, you know, for example, he has a very logical mind, right? That's why he can understand computers. He can't understand art. You know, this is why he asks what passionate means, right? He needs to have things translated into a very objectively defined set of parameters, right? And so pretty much once it's a lot easier to sort of for a computer to understand and predict what an autistic person is going to think than it is for a non-autistic person, because an autistic person is going to think in certain very clearly predictable logical patterns, right? You know, they are going to look for the optimal scenario. And you can program this stuff in and translate it to them, right? I mean, essentially, this, I suppose, this is why you don't need human level artificial intelligence to do this, because you're not translating social interaction to a human level you know. What you are doing is translating social data into a format that a computer level mind can understand, because that's what these autistic people are, right? The autistic people are people who are very hyperlogical and who entirely can, if it's objectively knowledgeable, they can understand entirely what that is, and, you know, they can learn every single thing about it. But if it's subjective, they can't do it, right? If it's associations that have nothing to do with logic, but are just, well, this was once seen with this, so therefore we're going to tie it together, you know. Like, I mean, I've, you know, done sort of tests with this guy, sort of, I mean, obviously, this isn't, you know, ultra-scientific tests, but, like, you know, sort of working out brand association and brand awareness, and, you know, like, the fact that, for him, he can tell you how something is made, but he can't tell you, for example, that, you know, brandy is associated with alcoholism, or, you know, like, you know, he can tell you, you know, what brand of a mouse is, you know, how it was made, you know, the kind of different mice that are like it, you know, how is it better selling and stuff like this. But he can't say, oh, it's a computer peripheral. It's like, it's like an Oculus Rift, or, you know, or a dance mat, or, you know, like, he can't think in that way. He can't think in terms of abstract association, which is good, because computers can't either. Computers take in data and they crunch it down into different other data, right? So you can have computers doing facial recognition, doing crude analysis of, well, this facial expression looks like this facial expression, so this body language looks like this, this, you know, audio tone looks like this, and you can give a rough approximate version of what it is to the person with the autism, and say, this is what they mean, right? Like, I mean, personally, right, I almost feel like this would help me talking to my friend, in the sense that I'm someone who is very, you know, I'm someone who says that, you know, objectivity is dead, you know, I'm someone who is very philosophical, and who is very much interested in sort of the unknowable concepts and exploring them, and that just breaks his brain. he can't deal with it. And, you know, I'm someone who uses a lot of metaphor. He can't deal with that. You know, like, I will say, you know, I'll bring up some metaphor and he'll get distracted by it and go, what is that? And it's just like, no, I didn't mean literally. So, you know, having some kind of computer to break down, oh, this is a metaphor, or even this is a mixed metaphor, it probably means this, or, you know, outlining these are what it could mean. Why don't you have a look at what these mean? Right? That just because the thing is that, like, for my friend, you know, he can learn and adapt. Of course he can. You know, like, it's possible. I mean, I managed to essentially coax him through essentially grasping how I can worry about the fact that he plays with thermite, despite the fact that, as far as he's concerned, it's perfectly safe, by essentially using the example of the fact that he is terrified of spiders and has to immediately squish them, despite the fact that they are perfectly safe. And so it's possible to interpret data in a way that autistic people, that people who think so rigidly and logically, can understand. And a computer, the problem they have is that, the problem this guy has is that he can't parse it. He doesn't have the RAM, right? He can talk to someone, right? But he can only just listen to the words very specifically that they are saying and say his own words back. He can't pay attention to, you know, the way that the words are said, to the punctuation of the words, to the body language of the person, you know. I mean, I suppose if you want to look at it this way, my friend is someone who would very easily be fooled by a very base level Turing machine, in the sense that, you know, I would be, you know, paying attention to grammar and to, I'd be paying attention to grammar and context and, you know, and to, you know, nuance. Whereas, you know, for him, it makes entire sense that, you know, you mention something, oh, that reminds me of this, I'm going to say this right now, and he can't filter, right? So, so having a way for his mind to sort of have the data of the world essentially crunched by a computer at a much faster speed than he can, and then given back to him, that would be better, right? Like, in a sense that he wouldn't necessarily communicate directly to you. Almost what he would end up doing is having this constant, unfiltered communication with a machine that would be, you know, taking in this nuanced information and then sort of deciding, okay, this is now an appropriate response to feed out. You know, you could almost, having this as a social prosthesis almost allows the computer to act as a filtering mechanism for the person and act as that internal editor that this autistic person lacks, by essentially having an external computer editor. And because the computer editor isn't judging, you know, the computer editor only works if you say exactly what you think. It's just that it then only lets out what is relevant and only lets you hear its, you know, distillation that you can understand. You know. Although obviously you'll have the ability to hear the stuff if you wanted to. And specifically to sort of the way this would be useful as kind of augmented reality stuff is that, like, I mean, the reason that my friend needs a carer is that he is, if he gets into a dangerous situation, he doesn't know what he's going to do. His brain locks down, and he could react violently. So, essentially, what you can have almost is a sort of crisis prevention system, and sort of almost have it, sort of sensors going, okay, this is going into a danger zone, and you could almost have it sort of say, almost by having it augmented reality, you could then have it black out, become virtual reality, transport them to somewhere they feel completely safe. I mean, my instinctual reaction is to say, oh, well, transport them to a beautiful meadow. But of course, this is an insanely autistic guy, so, maybe the appropriate place would be to transport them to a really cramped and tight area, but that's got a nice computer that they can just work away on, Like, transport them to somewhere wherever they feel most comfortable. Okay. And whilst you're transporting them there, and you might be distracting them with a game and sort of saying, focus here, here, and here. We need to do recalibration measures, Whilst that is going on, you can have the, sort of exterior speakers saying, please excuse the wearer of this social prosthesis. They have severe autism. Please note that we are currently broadcasting our GPS location and recording your face, and if you harm us, then there will an emergency signal will be beamed out, and the police will arrive and they will arrest you. Or there are ways that you could program it to essentially deal with whatever danger is happening, and then deal with the danger, deal with what is putting the person with the autism at threat. And then once the danger has passed, you sort of draw them out of the sort of virtual reality simulation, let them go back into augmented reality, and then you kind of, maybe you bring up sort of like almost sat-nav directions for home. I mean, you could almost like, whoops. Yeah, the problem is cables running to tablets that my feet hit. This is why you do not record on tablets. But something that has been observed about virtual reality is that if it's immersive enough, you will walk, right? So maybe what you could almost do is have the sort of computer, track, sort of realize danger is coming, black out the fields, set up a virtual reality simulation, and then sort of have some kind of, coordination with, say, Google Maps or something like this, some kind of sat-nav system to sort of, to sort of encourage the person with the social prosthesis to sort of chase after some sort of thing in the virtual reality simulation. They're going to start walking in that direction, right? And obviously you'd need to have, cameras that would watch for cars and, I mean, maybe, if we're assuming this is in a world of, automated cars, then, you could have the social prosthesis sending out signals within a certain radius saying, hey, automated cars, please stop the roads as this autistic guy needs to cross the road, and he's currently in a zonked out state because he needs to get home and there's been a crisis, so please stop and let him cross. And if these are automated cars, then presumably once the guy has crossed, they can speed up enough to clear up the fact that there was ever a stoppage in the first place. So to prevent long-term problems of having all these autistic people having to cross the road whilst in the middle of VR simulations. But that might be a way to sort of have a reduction of stressful stimulation, get them to a place where they would be safe without and get them to a place where they feel safe without sort of relying on them being there, being present in the situation and causing further damage to themselves. This is almost like it almost reminds me of like sort of the joke in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy of the sort of the peril sensitive sunglasses. The sort of social prosthesis would almost be peril sensitive sunglasses in that, like, it'd be watching for signs of danger that you wouldn't be aware of, but suddenly it'd be like, you are now transported to a beautiful field, and the person that you have a massive crush on is before you, and they want to lead you by the hand somewhere, and you're like, well, I'll follow them, and meanwhile, what was happening in reality is that, the sort of, a bunch of suspicious, shifty-looking types are sort of approaching menacingly, saying, "Hey, what's that fancy bit of kit you got on your head? Looks like we might be able to sell it, lads." Sort of having this social prosthesis sort of saying, don't worry, there's not an issue here, it's actually a very cheap piece of kit, and by the way, I'm broadcasting it to the police, and please don't hurt me, and meanwhile you're sort of guiding the person who is wearing the social prosthesis away by sort of creating this illusory image of them sort of wanting to go after this person that they really have a crush on, and that being the sort of sat-nav guiding them home as they sort of instinctually walk towards it. And I mean, like you could put almost, I mean, like a key thing, for people who have autism is overstimulation, right? So you could have, sort of like filters stopping them from smelling bad smells. So that way they can be in rooms that have, I mean, like for my friend, he can't, he was bedridden for 4 days because he doesn't like swallowing pills, and because he can't stand the sort of smell and taste of lemon. Right, and obviously there's an easy solution of, well, there are other flavours of Lemsip, right? But, equally you can imagine a world where sort of, there are sort of nasal scrubbers built into the sort of social prosthesis, so that if there is an overwhelming smell, the social prosthesis just kind of blocks out the smell and then guides you away from the thing that's making the smell. And I mean, maybe there might be an element to where, like, people might get hyper alert to the fact, it might almost be that you'd have people sort of getting anxious the moment they start feeling serenely calm. Like the gag with the peril sensitive sunglasses. Maybe it would be that even if the people who were autistic who got wise to this would start freaking the fuck out whenever it was like they're just happily going along minding their own business, and then it's like, boom, virtual reality time. Hello, your crush is here. They'd like to lead you somewhere. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Who the fuck is scaring me? Why is... Maybe that would happen, sort of, double think, alright? But I don't think that's so likely, because the whole reason these people have social prosthesis is that they aren't good at understanding social context, right? And even if they did, what you could do is almost say, and we're just gonna bring it on at random times, right? You could almost have it be 60% of the time, nothing's wrong, right? 60-70% of the time, there isn't an issue. So even, if autistic people would feel worried about that, then they know, well, clearly the majority of the time there's nothing wrong. So there's probably nothing wrong now. Okay, so therefore they wouldn't feel that almost, genre savvy, oh dear, everything is nice and lovely suddenly. I wonder what's going wrong. But it's, I mean, obviously, like, this does have, a problem if it exists in the world today, in the sense that we don't have a majority of self-driving cars, and, there are, there are ways in which, I mean, you'd have to, find a way to sort of, do augmented reality so that people can still see the feet in front of them and stuff like this, and so they can catch themselves and stuff like that. But I think that can be programmed in with the right kind of, augmented reality software. But I genuinely think this is something to look at. In the sense that autistic people, at least, this particular autistic person, thinks in a very logical manner that a computer could outperform, in the sense that it could have a far better, far quicker understanding of social etiquette, and at least it could, take him safely around issues that might cause problems. It could take him past dangers that might cause him to flip out, and, like, you could almost sort of say, okay, we're going to take you to the doctor now, and we're just going to play nice calming music, and you're all going to be happy in your VR simulation, while the computer is sort of reading out, well, yes, we've been doing this, the diet is this, and this, sort of tracking data that, I mean, we do end up in a kind of difficult situation, in the sense that, like, of a sort of consent and, trusting to the machine so much. But, like, if the idea is that this allows you to go out and to experience, and to, experience civilization, to go on walks, to actually meet people, because as it's augmented reality, right, it could basically, if it's good enough, it could almost make it seem like you are in an entirely empty room with just the one specific person you are talking to, whilst it is giving you a feed of, okay, their facial expression means this, right? And sort of, it's teaching the person with the autism what this means while it is happening. And almost like, training wheels for someone on a bike, sort of, a training helmet for people with bad social skills, and for people with severe anxiety. I mean, obviously, it's a lot easier to talk about this kind of thing than it is to make it. But I think this would be useful, and I think that it's not outside the bounds of possibility that this could be made. So yeah, sorry that this is so shitty. When I did a test record, and when I listened with headphones, it seemed to be okay. So hopefully, at least the sound is all right. I know that obviously when the audio, the video footage isn't so good, but hopefully the audio is good enough. And yeah, I just I would like to see a world where social prostheses existed, and whereby people with severe autism could go out and about in society by putting on these, helmets and backpacks and stuff. And maybe what you could just do, what you could do is almost, I mean, they're going to be working on haptic feedback technology and stuff like that. So maybe what they could do is almost, if they can have a sort of artificial artificial glove that gives feedback, right? Then maybe, or that feeds into a machine, where they could have a way to almost have a jacket that goes with the backpack that essentially means that should danger be encountered, that you can almost, lock the person's arms out to the sides or in front of them, so that essentially their arms are in position ready to help them if they fall or whatever, I mean, obviously that would, require much better algorithms, but I feel like this is the sort of thing that could be useful for society. And I feel like it's a lot more effective and a lot more possible than any of these, we'll get rid of autistic people by, stopping them from being born, or we'll get rid of autistic people by giving them all super pills, I feel like a social prosthesis would be a good thing, and to be honest, I might like a social prosthesis in the sense that, there are times when I feel, stressed, out by people. I mean, because of my experience in school, I'm genuinely a bit creeped out by children, right? So if I could have some kind of augmented reality headset that would just sort of like filter out children from my existence, that would be kind of good, That'd be like, okay, I don't have to worry, And like similarly, like if I encountered people who for me personally, like they had created problems in my past or whatever, the sort of the augmented reality would then go virtual reality and sort of steer you away, sort of like, maybe in the early days when the sort of the models, the digital models aren't so good. Maybe what you'd get is some kind of cartoonish, stylized dragon sort of saying, "Hey, Alex, why don't you just walk here this way for a minute?" And sort of, sort of pre-programmed chatbot, stuff that say, "Yeah, it's really cool. So, I've been sort of passing through your podcast history, and what do you think about, the sort of radical life extension technology, or, sort of cryogenics?" So, meanwhile, it's just sort of guiding me away from people who might cause me stress. You could almost, I mean, another element to this is that is you could, if we get this level of technology, right, that where we've got augmented reality technology to essentially work as social prostheses, and if we're gonna enter into a world where we've got something like the Google Glasses or whatever, then almost what we could have is live in a world where, like, I mean, one thing that I suppose I'm kind of, it's an anxiety of just like, okay, the brain does a certain amount of cataloguing, right? It just does, right? You see a pretty woman, it catalogues, right? So it might be nice to sort of, if we lived in some sort of grand, world where, I don't know, everybody sold their souls to Google or to Facebook or whatever, then, you could have your social prosthesis tag into people's, publicly available data. And it, could almost use, it might be able to use facial recognition technology or whatever and say, well, this person, their name is this, and this. Or maybe it would only display it if they match certain criteria. It might just say, It might just almost like filter out all other criteria and just say child, 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 child. Or equally, like, you know, in my scenario, I wouldn't see them, you know. You'd know that everyone you were talking to was an adult, because if they weren't, you wouldn't see them. You know, this person has not got this person has not got any kind of social media account. We do not know what their age is. So they don't exist. Or maybe they would exist and it would just come up with a, you know. I mean, obviously there might be certain algorithms. If it can do, you know, body language and stuff like this, it can probably tell, oh, well, that person's probably a child, so yeah, we're going to filter them out. But that person's, you know, okay, they don't necessarily have, you know, the data or whatever, but they...
Greetings, various people across the grand spectrums of time in the multiverse. My name is Alexander Gordon to your hands. So obviously, right, there are things going on at the moment. Like there's been an assassination attempt against Donald Trump. Obviously, I reported on this before, or gave my initial reactions. You know, the fact that Jo Cox, a female Labour MP, was assassinated by someone who, you know, certainly was associated as being part of Britain First and is being tried as a terrorist. Like, a lot of stuff has been happening. You know, I'm recording this on June the 23rd, when, you know, there's an EU referendum going on. You know, there's lots of stuff going on. I mean, I think there might even be drama llama stuff going on in the sort of Facebook groups and you know, like, I don't care about that stuff. Well, I do, but it's late and I've got a headache and I've got a shitty tablet, so I'm not gonna talk about that stuff. What I want to sort of talk about is this idea of prejudice and privilege, because the thing is that, like, I am privileged as a white man, right? And I'm privileged in a way that almost, like, it almost feels like a superpower once you realise it. I'm a person, right? I'm just me. I am just Alexander Gordon Johans, right? You know, yes, there are certain radical feminists who would say, well, you're a man, so this means this, and this means that, and this means this. But nobody the whole point of the hashtag not all men, the whole reason that is so aggravating is that, yes, we know not all men. Men are not assumed to be anything. Right? You know, but one bad female prime minister in Britain, and it's like, well, we can't have Hillary Clinton because she could be bad. And it's like, yeah, Hitler, Stalin, Pol Pot, you know, David Cameron, Tony Blair, you know, like, lots and lots of really bad prime ministers and really bad political leaders have been male. But one example of a bad female leader, and, well, you know, America, clearly you've got to vote for Donald Trump because, you know, Hillary Clinton, she's clearly the next Margaret Thatcher. And, you know, this is something that, you know, even sort of has been sort of circulating around my brain with regards to the fact of, you know, long ago in days gone by when drama llama stuff was going on, and, you know, essentially there was this whole thing about how I was supposedly transphobic and I had been kicked from this group, and this group made a statement, and, like, I'm not gonna rehash over that stuff. I just want to draw out one small little detail, which is that at the time this stuff was going on, somebody basically made a claim that was untrue, saying, oh, well, this person Alex is severely autistic, and as a result, that's why he said some bad things, so you should be forgiving, and you should let him in. And I'm not going to go over that stuff, but there was, amidst all this long other stuff, there was a statement to the effect of, well, on the one hand, yes, he has said that he, doesn't stand by those words, which I did, but also, and anyway, some of us have got autism and Asperger syndrome as well, and we know better than this. And, like, here's the thing. I am now possibly going to be sort of quasi moving in with this sort of boyfriend that I have now, and he is severely autistic, and like he, like I do, understands that that equality is a good thing, right? You have to be very particularly stupid, like a Trump supporter, in order to think that equality is a bad thing. Equality is clearly a good thing, right? But that doesn't stop you saying stupid shit because you don't know what you're talking about occasionally, right? I mean, like, I was trying to sort of explain to this guy who is sort of my quasi pseudo Schrodinger's boyfriend, why it is that I wouldn't feel comfortable just messaging the kind of women that I'm interested in, saying, hello, I would like to get into a relationship where I treat you in this manner as if you are submissive. Would you be okay with this? Because that's the sort of message that he has been sending around to loads of people on, OkCupid and stuff. Is basically a great big long list of, hello, I'm interested in vac beds, and I'm interested in being in rubber, and do you have a problem with this? And it's like, he thinks that there would be nothing wrong with me sending some similar kind of message to all the pretty blonde women that I might feel these feelings for, saying, how would you feel if I were to, if we were to get into a relationship and I were to tie you up, and like he can't see the cultural context as to why, after centuries and, generations and thousands of years of oppression of men against women, that it's kind of a bad thing to be, to be a man and to say, hello, I would like to dominate a woman, specifically you, would you let me? Like he can't gather that that's kind of, like, of course, BDSM, safe, sane and consensual and all this stuff, but like, still, I would feel awkward about it, and he can't, gather, even my perspective as to why. Because as far as he's concerned, well, equality. Things should be equal, therefore he will treat the world as though it is equal, and the thing is that the world is not equal, and therefore you have to be aware of the fact that the world is not equal, and you have to treat people accordingly in a manner that befits the fact that you have been given privilege as regards to, as essentially because of factors beyond your control, right? None of us can decide what location we're born in. None of us can decide what gender we identify as. None of us can decide which sexual orientation we have, right? I personally, believe that, we should live in a world where we can choose, and I personally think, it is very shitty how we live in an age of consent being king, and that consent over the fundamental characteristics of your identity is seen as a bad thing, even within the movement for equality. But, the fact is, we can't control these things, and I wouldn't, and even if I could control this, and I could sort of, I don't know, retroactively say, well, I was actually from Syria, or sort of retroactively decide, well, now I am, from this disadvantaged community and I will sign away my privilege, Even if I could do this, I don't feel like that I should have to do that in order to... Because that's sort of saying, well, you can have choice, but only if you will choose to do the things that we like. Which is not kind of the world of choice that I want to live in. I want to live in a world of choice, of equality for everyone, including the white men. Because equality. But, the point is that, like, white men have been oppressing people for an awful long time. And we have been making stereotypes, and we have been putting people into boxes, and, like, we cheat. Our brains have, like, a limit of how many people we can regard as actually people. So, well, it'll be when something happens, when one group of people behaves a certain kind of way, we associate that with how that group of people always acts. I mean, like, in school, I was prejudiced against teachers. Because as far as I was concerned, they were basically just, wardens. And I'm still sort of prejudiced against children because I remember being a child and how fucking horrible children were. So, like, there are ways in which, prejudice affects all of us. We all have some kind of prejudice, no matter how egalitarian or SJW or forward-looking or whatever you want to call it. No matter how nice we are, we all carry some sort of baggage. And the thing is that only the white man gets to stand alone as an individual in this society. An autistic person is somehow representative of all autistic people. And so therefore, if someone is presented, admittedly in this case incorrectly, as having done something badly because they were autistic, then other autistic people can say, well, I also am an autistic person, and I disregard that autistic person's right to say that his autism was a factor, despite the fact the very point of autism is that it is a grand spectrum of severity of cases, right? The entire fucking point of autism is that you cannot have someone represent all autistic people. Right? That is the reason it is the grand spectrums of time and the multiverse. It is a spectrum. One cannot represent the whole. One is not all. Yet somehow, one can be judged by one and condemned because one is all. And yet, that doesn't happen if you're a white man, right? Yes, there will be, there are entire, books and libraries and academic fields of study saying, white men, right? But none of that really affects the world, right? Yes, Anita Sarkeesian says some stupid shit at times, right? Yes, there are things that Emma Watson says that I kind of look at and go, there are things like, manspreading and mansplaining and, like, that kind of make you go, huh. But, like, in general, men can ignore it, as I have been doing for the vast majority of the time, right? I walked the fuck past Gamersgate, and I didn't know it fucking happened, right? I mean, I was peripherally aware, but, like, it was like a storm happening in America, right? You might hear reports, but you're not involved. You don't see it. And partly it might have just been because it was on a website that I didn't frequent, and that it was in a community that I'm not really a part of, because let's face it, I just play Skyrim and Minecraft. But the point is that, like, as a man, you get to ignore this shit. As a man, you don't have to be involved in everything. Right? You are one. You know, it's I am not man. I am not white. I am Alex Johans, and yet when it comes to everything else about who I am Kalman syndrome. I am autism. I am bisexual. You know, I am lapsing vegetarian. I am anti-theist. You know, if you are belonging to any other fucking demographic, then you represent all, right? And it's this idea of, clearly it stems from essentially the white man oppressing people and saying, oh, well, you all look alike, so fuck you. But it's trouble is that, like, it's this idea of seizing empowerment through using the tools that you are given, right? I mean, I've talked about this before to a certain extent, that, like, sort of, you know, women have been fetishized as part of society. Men prize them very highly, and then there is this sort of self-reinforcing circle of association that is constantly fetishizing a certain kind of female form. And that women, because there is this fetishization going on, because there is this oppression going on, they use the tool that is used to hold them down and to trap them as a tool by which to fight for their own means of equality. And so, equally, other demographics use it, you know. Black people, you know, white people will, you know, brand all people who are not white into, you know, this generic category of, they're coloureds, they're foreigners, they're black, whatever. And as a result, you know, people from this cult, people who are part of this demographic that white people have decided to homogenize through otherization, decide to seize upon this as a cultural identity with which to fight back against the white men who have done the otherization. And similarly, you know, like, women are... This is the whole reason we have Anita Sarkeesian and Emma Watson and so many libraries filled with academic essays talking about the white men, is because women have been using the otherization of women as a means to fight back against men by saying, oh, well, you think that all women are the same and they should act the same way? Well, alright, we're all gonna fight the same under the same fucking banner. And now you're fighting against 50% of fucking planet Earth. You know, 3.5 billion people, plus however many percentages of the men who do that, who think that feminism is a good idea. And then you're fucked. Then the cause of the white man, the white man and the oppressing of the women, that can't work. It is about people using the tools that are given to them to hurt them in order to fight back. And, you know, equally we're seeing this, you know, with the transgender community, of the otherization of all transgender people are pedophiles and they're going to rape your children. So they take this thing that is being used to hurt them, of the homogenization, and they say, well, alright, we are one community, we fight as one, we will squash you. And then you get to autism, and it doesn't quite work. Doesn't quite fucking work. Because autism isn't like homosexuality, transgender, women, black people. It's not like all these other demographics that fall under the grand categories of social justice warrior issues or whatever. Instead, autism is a disease that at its high end of the spectrum needs to be medicated, that is crippling and yet also makes people into geniuses. And at the minor end, can give people great skills and not that bad drawbacks, but drawbacks that do nonetheless radically alter their lives. Like my quasi pseudo Schrodinger's boyfriend, he has an amazing ability with computers. He can tell you, what make a computer is, how it was made, the entire history of the chipset, right, that makes it up. And yet, he can't leave his house without someone he knows to essentially communicate for him, because he locks up or he runs away. He can't work because his brain just can't deal with the stress of going, okay, well, in order to work, I need to get grades and qualifications, and then once I've got the grades and qualifications, I need to do work experience so that I can, I need to do volunteering or an internship so I can get work experience so I can actually get a job, and even then I've got to do this, and I've got to do that. He just goes, no, fuck that, I'm just going to do my one thing because fuck all this stress. And, this is a man who can't process facial expressions, can't process the vocal intonations, can't process body language, can't process social fucking context. And then, also, I'm on the autistic spectrum, and for me, I'm just a bit awkward at times and I say the wrong thing. And I like to tell the truth. And I sort of am a bit good with computers. I'm not impressive. I don't have any amazing abilities, but neither do I have amazing drawbacks. And it's like, I think that kind of we're reaching a point where in order to fight back against oppression, we need to seize upon the superpower that men have in society to be individuals, right? I am not an autist. I am not a bisexual. I'm not a faggot. What I am is Alexander Gordon Johans. You may be transgender, you may be a woman, you may be bisexual, pansexual, whatever, right? You're you. All those things that you are as well, all those causes that you want to fight for, you fight for them as yourself, not as the label that you are a part of. Because we need to stop judging people by their label. We need to stop saying, oh, well, this person is bad because they're a white man. This person's bad because they're a black man. This person is bad because, see, they're a woman and they're going to be incompetent at their job. This person, see, they're trans, so you can't trust them because, they're messaging with the fundamental laws of nature because, they have a different gender identity to the one that they were assigned at birth. How dare they? By the way, that was sarcasm. That was, well, they already think I'm a transphobic piece of shit, whatever. I'm well aware that I am in this unique position as being a very left-wing guy who fights for the cause of social justice and is regarded by people in the social justice movement as a bigoted piece of shit, and who is regarded and who is followed by people in the bigoted piece of shit camp as a hateful SJW faggot. Right? Like, I am someone who is hated by both sides. Hated by both fucking sides, you know, like, I'm a transphobic piece of shit, and I'm a fucking leftist, you know, faggot piece of shit, you know. And I'm thankful that I get to be a man, because that means I get to say, you know what, I'm not whatever the fuck you think I am. My name is Alexander Gordon Johans, and I fucking decide what I am. You may call me whatever the fuck you like. You may write essays about how you think I am horrible. You may make entire websites dedicated to taking screen caps from my Facebook pages or my you know, YouTube channels and saying, well, you see, Alexander Gordon Johans is a great big cunt because of this, this, and this. And you see, he's got a tiny prick, and he's got tits, and yes, if you see over here, yes, he's actually also transphobic because of X, Y, and Z that we aren't going to properly explain. And you're like, please, go ahead, do whatever that you need to do. But I am me, and that's the superpower that I get through being a man. I don't have to represent my race. I don't have to represent my gender, and I don't have to represent whatever fucking spectrum I am on. Because at the end of the day, when reportings are made of white men doing bad things, they don't say, ah, well, a Muslim did it. Ah, well, a bisexual did it. Ah, well, you know, they don't say the label. What they say is, this person did a thing. That's the power and the privilege of the white man. All this other stuff gained through centuries of repression, yeah, that's there too. But the fundamental power and privilege of the white man, the thing that all these other people who belong to all these other demographics need to seize for themselves, is the power to be an individual. The power to not be a representative of a demographic or a community. Right? You do not have to be someone speaking and representing your community. You can just be you. Hillary Clinton will not be the first woman president. She will be yet another in a long line of presidents in America. Donald Trump will not be the first cunt president, because there have been a lot of cunt presidents, but he will not be the first fascist president in America, because what he will actually be is yet another in a long, long line of presidents of America. You are one thing. You are yourself. You are not your race, your gender, your sexuality, your mental states. What you are is your name, is your history, your person, your identity. What you are is you, not these other labels that are applied to you by society. Now, if you excuse me, I think I need to go to sleep because fuck, it's been a goddamn long day.
Greetings, various people across the grand spectrums of time in the multiverse. My name is Alexander Gordon Johans. So, there was an EU referendum. I will do a proper long video on it later, but TLDR, I wanted to. I voted to remain. That's what I wanted, and I'll admit that I kind of had a little bit of a freak out on Facebook, and you can read that through my Twitter feed, which is @Farshnuke. That's at FARSHNUKE on Twitter, and you can sort of read through the sort of posts that I've been sharing and the messages that I've been sort of sharing, and basically I didn't like it. I'm not happy with the result. I wanted us to remain in the EU. I wanted us to try and reform the EU to, fight climate change, and yeah, bad thing, something I regard as a bad thing has happened. I can't yet process entirely what has happened, and I think for something as big as this, and because of some of the other stuff that I need to talk about first, like what happened to Joe Cox, I'm gonna essentially wait until I have a proper computer again so I can do proper research, and I might do scripted videos on those events, because holy fuck balls, these are big things that deserve to be properly fucking talked about. And I tried to do an initial reaction, and my initial reaction of the Joe Cox thing was regarded by people as, oh no, you're saying nothing, you don't know anything, and it's like, no, it was an initial reaction to something that genuinely shocked and upset me, right? I'm not, the intent was not to create some kind of definitive review and political punditry, it was just, I'm a human being, here is my reaction to a tragedy, sort of thing. The EU referendum is not a tragedy. I mean, I made the case myself before with regards to why it might be a good idea to leave the EU. So I don't want to let my initial feelings of sadness sour me from doing a more proper, more nuanced review. Well, not review, but more proper, more nuanced video later. I mean, that said, I know from the comments that I am getting that essentially the assassination of Joe Cox, the failed assassination of Donald Trump, and the EU referendum result being what it was, that essentially the far right are getting a lot more ballsy, and that they are... I'm getting a lot more hardcore negative comments being tried to be left, in my comment section than usually happens. So that's kind of a bit of a problem, and that's partly why I'm not, I'm not making hour-long videos responding to this shit yet, because essentially I want the hardcore fuckwits to fuck off, Like the people who genuinely are like, oh, how did your gun control help you when someone fucking shot someone in your fucking country? Oh, you're fucking trying to assassinate Donald Trump and he got off okay. Yeah, like all this bullshit that is about at the moment, right? I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to encourage that. I don't want, I'm very aware that kind of my hate base are the people who legitimately think that Saga of a Cad is a good idea, right? Like, they think that, his videos are genuinely really awesome and they love what he says. And so I don't want to, add fuel to the flames of right-wing hatred right now. I want the right wing to go the fuck back to sleep, and let the rest of us, deal with the fucking crisis that's going on. But I mainly wanted to talk about today something kind of almost entirely different, which is that I've been getting a lot of people asking me, why don't I lose weight? Well, why don't I lose weight? Why don't I become super hardcore, awesome, beefcake? And it's like, I'd like to be beefcake. You know, I mentioned it in my video on cultured meat on my second channel, which is the first link in the bunch of links in the description. I mentioned in that video that it would actually be a good thing for me to, you know, get ripped as all fuck, and you know, it is something that I should do, right? But the thing is that it's very hard to do. It's very, very fucking hard to do, and for not much gain, right? Now, yes, there are certain things about myself that I want to change. Certain things about myself that are bad. I mean, like the tits, basically. The tits. I don't like the fact that I have tits. And fundamentally, that's something that will probably be solved by surgery at some point. And the thing is, like, other than the tits, and obviously, like, the fact that my certain private and confidential areas of my body aren't necessarily up to standard spec, that can't be dealt with. But the other sort of parts of my body, right, I actually think that, you know, aside from, you know, the things that have been damaged by Kalman syndrome, one of which can be, well, two of which can be fixed, and the other sort of set of stuff can't be fixed, I actually feel quite good about my body, you know. And I know this strikes people as being very odd, right? Like you've got tits and you've got tiny, you know, whatever. How can you be happy with your body because you've got fat and, you know, like all this stuff? Like, I acknowledge that there are things that I can be doing to live a healthier lifestyle, and I want to do those things. I want to be eating healthier. I want to be doing more, walking more. You know, I acknowledge that these are good aims to go for, right? I don't have a problem with aspiring to be fitter, with aspiring to eat healthier. You know, I don't have a problem with doing this for health reasons. I have a problem with doing this because I want girls, right? Because yes, I want girls, right? Yes, and I mean, I do have a boyfriend now, and he's very lovely and he's very sweet. But you know, he has said he's open to an open relationship, and that, you know, if I can, and I want to get a you know, a woman involved in the relationship, and they understand what's going on with him, and that they acknowledge that I'm going to be involved with him at the same time, that he has no problem with it. You know, so long as everybody's on board and there's no stress and tears, he's fine with it. So I can still, you know, theoretically pursue this, you know, dream of having a subby woman, right? So, you know, this is something that I could strive for. And I will admit that I do kind of see the argument that that some people are making. I mean, these are admittedly people who, in general, their arguments on the whole seem to be very misogynistically based. But the central argument that I've seen repeated, that essentially, well, these are women who like to be submissive before a dominant man. They want a man who's going to be dominant about things and not necessarily going to be going, I really like you, but, I just sort of, can I bind your hands and take control of you, please? Because, I mean, only if you like it, I can understand that, you know, if there are submissive women out there, that they're not gonna fall for, you know, the awkward as fuck, you know, you know, awkward as fuck, incredibly cautious about, you know, approaching and stuff like that. I can understand that logic and reasoning that, you know, if someone finds dominance a turn on, you kind of got to be dominant about approaching them. The issue there also is that, like, it's sort of, as I was trying to explain to my boyfriend, that, like, for him, he wants a boyfriend for very particular reasons, right? He has very particular fetishistic needs that he wants fulfilled that I match up with, right? So basically, he sends out messages that are just like a long list of stuff saying, "Are you okay with this? Are you okay with this? Are you okay with this? Are you okay with this?" And sort of his approach is anyone who doesn't immediately say, "Yes, can I talk to you?" is just they would never be work with him in the long term, right? Whereas for me, like, I acknowledge that I could do some kind of similar system of just saying I will only look for the subby women, right? But the thing is, I'm not just interested in the submissive women. I mean, apart from anything else, right? I'm not really a hardcore I'm not really a hardcore dom, right? Like, I'm very much in the shallow end of things. So for me to, say, oh, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get super hardcore ripped, and then I'm going to, learn all of this, sort of, this pulling culture jargon, and I'm going to learn all these practices because I want to get the certain kind of woman who is really interested into this certain kind of man. Like, I don't want to do that because, like, it's as I was sort of explaining to my boyfriend that, like, he wants a very particular kind of person, and that particular kind of person is rare, right? Like, he wants someone who is fine, talking with someone who is severely autistic. He wants someone who can do these things with him, in a vac bed, which, a vac bed is kind of, that's getting into sort of, deep territory in terms of fetishism. And if they don't subscribe to that, then, he doesn't want them. But that's a small amount of people, right? And that I am one of the few who falls into. And it gets even smaller when you fall in, when you describe, okay, well, how many people was in a commutable area and shit like that. Whereas for me, right, first of all, right, I now have my submissive, right? Like, my boyfriend, he will, I'm wondering how much I can say, but kind of, essentially, he will almost be at the point of tears, asking me, can you please do this? And then after he's sort of described what he wants me to do, he's like, okay, and then what can I do for you? And I'm like, wait, hang on, weren't you just describing what you were going to do for me? Like, like, the things that he describes that he really wants done to him are the things that I really want to do to someone. Like, right down to the point of, like, we have talks about things that we would like to do, and, sort of I will describe concepts and ideas from stories that I've written, and and yeah, there'll be points where he'll go, that's not my kind of jam, which of course is, fine, that's how this works, safe and consensual. But, quite a lot of things, a lot more than I would necessarily expect, he's like, oh, I'd love to do that. And it's like, so, it's like, I've already got, I've already got the quantum mechanics nerd who can fix supercomputers and is incredibly submissive. So at this point, like, I don't necessarily need to have, the fantasy dream of the submissive, petite, beautiful, blonde woman satisfied, just entering into a kind of, I suppose, heteronormative, neurotypical relationship with a woman would be good enough, right? Like, I mean, I say good enough, but what I mean is that, like, I don't need, and I don't want just the submissive woman, right? I also just want to get to know women, even if they are on the other side of the world, but because apart from anything else, right? I want to be less of a douchebag in general. I want to write women as less douchebaggy, and it's like, I mean, part of the reason that I find submissiveness such a turn on is because it is something that is so that is because it is something that is seen as taboo in our society, right? People say to me, you should stop giving in to leftist, SJW propaganda, and you should embrace right-wing misogynist propaganda because you really just want to treat submissive women right. Like, no, the reason that I find submissive women such a turn on as a man is that it's 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 a stigma in our society, right? That's why I find it a turn on, is that I want to be a feminist, I want to be a leftist, I want to be in that kind of crowd, and in that kind of crowd, a submissive woman, being into submissive women is a taboo and a stigma, right? Even if it is, safe, sane and consensual, the fact that I am, a 6 foot guy makes it a problem. And again, right, if we're talking about, stigma and how that plays into why something is erotic, right? The fact that I am a fat guy with glasses who wears suits and who, has a Doctor Who bag, right? That makes it more of a... Hello, I'm making a video.
Oh. Well, if I just curl up here quietly, is that alright?
I can't edit on this thing. Anyway, because of the things that I have just discussed, essentially, that only plays more into why I consider, submissive women such a term. If I was, a Christian Grey sort of, or a non-douchebag, rapey, abusey kind of Christian Grey, if I was, some kind of, rich, ripped as fuck, dominating personality, it wouldn't be such the turn on that it is, because there wouldn't be such a stigma against it, right? It's the fact that I am a nerd who is unfit and living at home with my parents because the economy is fucked. That I am someone who is trying to be a feminist and appeal to feminists, that makes the idea of submissive women such a turn on, right? And that's the thing, like, fetishes play into the idea of taboos and stuff, I mean, for my boyfriend, right, fetishes are very much to do with, essentially the way his brain works, and with the fact that, his brain, his autism is such that he can, essentially he reacts very extremely to stimulation. To the point where, like, being in the back bed is relaxing for him because it means that, essentially he has no stimulation whatsoever because it's all evenly applied, and he can't hear and he can't see. And similarly, like, lesser things, just the sort of foreplay aspects is such a turn on for him because it's just the slight pressure and stuff, which, because he's so sensitive, is almost more, gives more pleasure and power towards the sensation for him. Whereas for me, it's all about the concepts, right? I'm a very sort of idea-driven kind of person. I'm very much a thinker, right? And the reason that I find submissive women such a turn on is that throughout my entire life, I have seen women as equals. I've seen them as, in fact, more than equals, as being kind of superior, right? They were my teachers, you know. My you know, my mother, you know, like they have been, you know, I mean, you look at the roles that women fulfill in society stereotypically, you know, they look after your children, they look after the sick, you know, they're in the police force, you know, they're in the army now, like women are powerful, and in the age of, you know, third wave feminism and Anita Sarkeesian and Emma Watson, women have great power in society, which is why it is such a turn on to think about them being submissive. So I don't want to be a douche bro who is into the, you know, MRA right wing movement, because that would defeat the entire reason why I like that. I like this kink because I am a leftist, feminist, whatever. You know, it's so, you know, there are. I will admit that, you know, maybe my approach could do with some work, but I'm not just looking for that particular kind of woman. I also just want to get to know women in general and not to be a douche bro. Um, and also, like, in general, I'm happy with my appearance at the moment, and I know that I could theoretically become, you know, ripped as fuck and go to the gym and get super muscly and stuff, but I also know that it would require so much effort, it would require so much time, and frankly, I would rather spend that time learning and feeling nice and doing things with, you know, my boyfriend. Like, why would I spend all this time just to look a certain way for other people? You know, I don't give a fuck what other people think. If I gave a fuck what other people think, I would not still be doing this YouTube channel, because every single video that I get has got massive downvotes, has got massive negative comments, and, you know, like, if I gave a shit, would I be doing this? No, I wouldn't. And you know I wouldn't, because if I gave a shit, everything that all you negative types have been doing would be working against me. But it doesn't. So yeah, there will be proper videos on what happened to Joe Cox and on the EU referendum, and everything that's kind of that's been happening later. But yeah, for the moment, I'm still without a proper computer, and until I have a proper computer, I can't really do the research, and I can't really, you know, do anything that I would want to do if I'm making those kinds of videos. And as you have seen, yes, I can't actually edit. So, yeah, this is an extra pile of awkwardness. Uh, anyway, I'm going to leave this video uploading, as I now have to go up the road. See ya. Greetings, various people across the grand spectrums of time in the multiverse. My name is Alexander Gordon Johans, and I just wanted to say thank you. Obviously, I've not been able to post videos of late, well, not as many as I would have liked, and the videos that I have been able to post have been, let's face it, worse than my usual standard, and considering my usual standard is crap, that's saying something. So, I kind of expected nobody to care. I expected to fade into obscurity, right? Like, that's what happens when you stop posting videos, is even the people who hate you get bored. And I've been okay with that, you know, like, bad stuff has happened, bad stuff has happened. The assassination of Joe Cox, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, which, yes, I do regard as a bad thing, because assassinating politicians is not a good idea, and it does not end well, you know, even if the politicians are politicians like Donald Trump. And obviously the referendum did not go as I personally would have hoped. And now, like, Barclays is, and Royal Bank of Scotland have had to stop trading because the pound has dropped so far that it's a danger for them to continue trading. The Good Friday Agreement is in jeopardy because of Brexit. The Scots they're going to get a second referendum on independence, um, and, and now kind of because essentially the Chilcot inquiry is coming out soon, and because there's essentially the sense of a general election happening soon. The Blairites have staged another coup because essentially they want to get Corbyn out before there is an election. So kind of basically everything that sort of could go wrong is going wrong, and so I've just been like, fuck that, fuck all of that bullshit, and just focusing on sort of talking to my boyfriend and moving in with him, and that's going to happen very, very soon, in fact. And I'm bisexual, by the way, not gay, bisexual, and I still very much admire the ladies. Not that matters, but some people are going to ask, so I'll answer it now. So because essentially of all the negativity, and because I haven't been able to record good videos, I sort of have been focusing on being with my boyfriend instead of worrying about this stuff. And I sort of expected that I would be forgotten and nobody would care. And instead, what I am noticing is that I'm getting like 400, 800 views a video, and these are like old videos, it's fairly old by the standards of, YouTubing. I've got several videos that have passed 1,000 views, and like several of them have got like 30 likes. I mean, granted, a lot of them also have like 500 dislikes, but like, that's a lot of views, it's a lot of interactivity ratings, and yet I've still been keeping in touch with the comments, the comment moderation, and if anything, there has been less negative comments recently than usual. So I don't know what's happening. Maybe all the really negative types are just off drinking. I don't know. Maybe the reason they're not leaving anything negative is because they're watching the videos going, he's not saying anything that we hate at the moment, so we're just gonna drink and celebrate instead of leaving it in the negative comment. I don't know what's going on. I don't know, but I just want to say thanks. Thanks for not forgetting that my videos exist, because that's really the worst thing, like, I mean, my boyfriend has his own sort of issues with regards to the fact that he does things sort of vaguely to do with online and stuff, and for him it's actually getting to a point where the stress is almost too much to bear. And one of the things that I'm going to try and do for him is help him find an alternative so that he can essentially shut down this online activity that is giving him all the stress. Whereas for me, right, even with the doxing, I never felt like I needed to stop making the videos that I've made. I have, like, even at the very worst of the comments left against me, and bearing in mind, like, comments have been very, very bad. I have had people telling me they know where I live, that threatening my family, threatening my cat, people who have been saying that they're me from the future, but as a trans woman. Like people, just generally insulting me, being bigoted, using hateful language and slurs, and this is what I get on a daily basis normally, and that's fine. That's fine. So for me, genuinely, like the worst thing is to not have this work, right? At this moment in time, at this point in time, this YouTube thing that I'm doing, it's working. You know, it genuinely is working. Not perfectly, not amazingly, not yet, but it is working. In the sense that there is a momentum building. I am attracting more subscribers. I'm attracting more viewers. I am getting more interactivity ratings. My videos are getting more views. I'm making more money from this, and it's just sort of snowballing. And so the fact that I have had to step away from this, and I have had to stop producing videos for a bit, and I have had to actually instigate kind of a downgrade of quality in the videos that I do produce whilst I don't have a computer. All of this stuff, and the fact that the views have been good, the user interactivity ratings have been good, the ratio of shit comments to user interactivity ratings and views has been tremendously good. This is amazing. This is truly amazing. Now, come whenever it is that I am properly able to make a video again, be that Thursday or wherever. Thursday seems the most likely candidate for a day that I'll be able to create a proper video again. Whenever I create the first proper video, I have a lot of stuff to talk about. I have got the Joe Cox stuff to cover. I've got the failed assassination attempt of Donald Trump to cover. I've got the EU referendum to cover. The various coups against Jeremy Corbyn. And the results of sort of the European referendum and how Brexit is causing damage, and also my friend who sort of he deals a lot with computers. He's saying to me that he's pointed out that basically Windows 10 has got big issues. I mean, I use Windows 10. I like Windows 10, although admittedly my computers do need to be fixed, but for hardware issues. But basically, as far as he's concerned, he's seen a lot of people who Windows 10 has fucked up their computers through the auto updates on machines that just can't run Windows 10. And there are now essentially Windows 10 computers that come with it pre-installed with the sort of OEM installations, and the way they are made, you can't upgrade them. You can't access the hard drive and the RAM, and you can't fix that shit. It's there are no screws. You can't remove the backplate. You can't access the RAM. You can't access the hard drives. It's all soldered in without a remove this and change it up and change it out, and that's a big fucking problem. And so I need to do a proper video on that later, as well as everything else, and so I just wanted to say thank you for bearing with me through this trying time. Um, because the fact is now that I am in a much better position than I was before. It seems that I can claim universal credit, um, which means that I am on benefits, at least for the moment. And it seems they're not actually too bad and about things, so that's okay. And maybe I will be able to get a proper job at some point. But either way, the fact that I can continue to make these videos, can continue to make however much money I can from these videos is a good thing. Um, Especially now that I am, I'm going to be essentially moving in with my boyfriend, and just sort of seeing how things go. Like, the money, I mean, I make these videos for me. I've never, I've never really cared what people have said. I have made clear that I would not like them to continue posting negative shit, because I hope that helps. But I've never really cared. I've just made them for me, and so the fact that I make these for me, and people are liking them enough to, or at least they're caring about them enough to keep watching, keep downvoting, and keep interacting with them, even when I'm no longer making videos, and when I am making videos, I'm making rubbish videos. Like, the fact that they're doing that really makes me feel awesome, and I just want to say thank you very, very, very much, because you guys, you're the reason that I can sort of do this, right? Like, I have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/Farshnuke, FARSHNUKE. You might need to add a hyphen in there between the Farsh and the Nuke. Not sure. Um, there'll be a link in the description. And there is, I have a PayPal link, which is paypal.me/Alexander Johans. Again, there'll be a link in the description, and I have a Steam wishlist page and stuff, so that, because hey, it's been my birthday, and maybe you'd want to, I don't know. I'm not. I'm not begging for money, because the point is that you guys have actually, through continuing to support my videos, through continuing to like, dislike, comment, favorite, share, you have made me money, and you're helping me raise my channel, and you're doing a lot of good stuff for me. So thank you. Lord knows you don't deserve, you don't need to do any of that, right? I am aware that I make crap videos, and I'm aware that for the majority of you, you really don't like what I do, right? There are a large majority of people who come to my videos just to watch the first 5-10 seconds and dislike them and leave a negative comment, and that's fine. That's fine, right? Um, Lord knows you don't have to do that. You could easily, have a masturbate. Go, fuck your girlfriend or boyfriend, or just general romantic partner, because wherever they may be along the grand spectrums of time in the multiverse. You could do some work, or, you know, anything, right? You could be doing anything, but instead you're choosing to click on my videos, even if it's just to dislike them. And that helps. That really, truly, genuinely does. So I just wanted to say thank you, and like, I I I haven't deserved any of this. And I know that. I know that. I am well aware that I produce nothing but crap and garbage, and I mean, I'm not really sorry about that at all. But you don't, certainly, you guys haven't needed to watch my videos as much as you have, to have given my videos as much attention as you have, but you have, and now maybe at some point actually going to be able to make a career out of this. So, thank you. I mean, I think ultimately this might be the final, detriment and criticism of capitalism if these videos, as rubbish as they are, can cause me to make a living through capitalism. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being a part of this. Because Lord knows I didn't expect this. That's not to say I didn't try, but to a certain extent that's like putting up a sign outside your house saying we'll have sex for models for £1,000. Like, yes, you can try. Doesn't mean you're actually expecting to fucking get anywhere, right? You can put up flyers saying whatever the fuck you like. Hello, I am looking for a, pretty submissive woman to be my pet. You can try really hard. You can have massive advertising campaigns. Doesn't mean you expect anything to work, right? So, yeah, I've been plugging away at this for like 10 years now. Never expected anything. Just doing it for fun. And now I take time off due to technical issues. And you guys are still here. You guys are still here. You're still caring about my content. And you're still making me money. And that's glorious. And Lord knows, I don't deserve any of this. I don't deserve to make money from my videos. I know I don't. Because they're shit, objectively. But I do. So thank you. Thank you very, very much. You're wonderful. And just to clarify, earlier points people made. I know that there is a difference between douche bros and people who just like to be fit. In my video talking about that, I was addressing the fact that some people were saying, essentially I was addressing multiple different things at the same time. In a sense that in that video, I was addressing the people saying, well, if you want a submissive, then you need to have this particular kind of attitude. And I was also addressing the people saying, well, if you want a woman, then you need to do the exercise to look a certain way. And obviously my sort of perspective on this was kind of like, I'll turn it up a few notches, but I'm not going to go too far. And for some people, they took this as, oh, well, he knows what he should do, but he's making excuses and he's going to be a fat idiot forever, right? No, I know that I am trying to eat better and I am trying to do more exercise, and I do need to find bigger weights because, currently I can, pretty much, well, hand-eye coordination permitting, I can pretty much juggle these 1.5 kilogram weights. So, kind of maybe what I should do is maybe find some 2.5, 3 kilogram weights to work on, and then obviously from there keep increasing the ability to do stuff. And obviously there's an outdoor gym near where I am at the moment, and so obviously that's going to change, but for the moment at least I've been sort of going there, and I have been trying to increase my upper arm strength. And I mean, obviously I'm not exactly super fit at the moment, but the point is I am trying. That I realise that's not going to be enough for some people, and that's okay. I don't give a shit what they think. I don't really give a shit what anyone thinks. But this is just a clarification for some people if they are worried about that. Oh, and I have also got a mini bike underneath this desk, and I've been using it for so long that I have the most amazing calves. So, yes, well, at least the most amazing calves, considering the rest of my body is rubbish. But, yeah, I just thank you in general for making it so that this is possible. Because Lord knows, I don't deserve any of the success that I have gotten on YouTube, and I damn well know it. Anyway, I suppose, fuck it. I'm in an open relationship now with a very sweet autistic guy, and that means any glamorous submissive female supermodels out there, you know who to call if you want a somewhat inexperienced and incredibly left-wing aspiring feminist Dom. 'Cause hey, what the fuck, right? Trying to do the incredibly ambitious thing that you think is probably never going to work has worked out surprisingly well so far. So why not reach out my proverbial fingertips and stretch out to new possibilities and ways in which I could try hard to achieve something I think is probably impossible and have no real expectations that will actually happen. Anyway, thank you all. I will stop waffling now and leave you to your masturbation or whatever it is that you guys do. See ya.